we shall see these presents greetings. Ruckdog here with another video. This time around, I'm going to be doing a Class B game roundup. Now, we'll do a quick refresher on just what it is I mean by Class B. And then I'm going to dip into a few Class B games that I'm into at the moment. And this means these are games I'm either playing or have recently played or are maybe preparing to play. Basically the ones that are sort of at the top of my mind right now when I sit down to think about what games I might like to play now or in the near future. And then we'll finish up with another quick channel update. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the quick reminder on Class B games. So Class ABC, nothing to do with the quality of the game. It's all about how commercially available a game is, right? And so specifically a Class B game is something that's in production. You can buy it from the people who originally made the game. And generally it's only available online, although it's possible that a few retailers here or there might have some available on the shelf. As I said in my previous video, where I go into each of these categories in a bit more detail, Class B games are a fairly common category for naval games, since naval games are a bit of a niche within a niche, and they don't tend to see as much of a wide commercial release as some other games do. Okay, so that out of the way, now that we have sort of baseline what a Class B game is, and again, if you want more detail, more discussion, or want to know about the other two classes, A and C, make sure you check out that previous video. Let's go ahead and move on to talking about some of the Class B games that I'm most into at the moment. First up is A Billion Suns. Alright, so what is A Billion Suns? Well, it is what we refer to as a miniatures agnostic game, i.e. there's no specific range of miniatures that this game is designed to work with. It's the type of game where you can bring pretty much any miniatures you have. It was written by Mike Hutchison, who has also done games such as Gaslands, very popular, and published by Osprey as part of their Osprey War Games series. We've covered this game before, and I've definitely talked about it quite a bit on the podcast. We even did a detailed review of this game on the podcast. And one of the things that makes it interesting is it has a set of missions that focus more on economic elements, sort of economic warfare. And so it almost becomes like a board game where you have to do pick up and deliver type missions a lot of time, as opposed to a straight up knockdown, shoot 'em up combat game. Now, the folks out there who are just more into spaceships blowing up do have the option of going for a second mission pack that was released, about a year ago now, that has a lot more focus on combat missions. So in other words, it's a little bit closer to your quote-unquote standard Starship combat game, in that the missions are more about trying to blow up the other player's ships as opposed to carrying out a commercial contract. So why A Billion Suns? Why is this on my radar? Well, the combat mechanics are a lot of fun, and I'm really itching to try that new mission set that will stress those a little more. It's a fully fledged game system, which means that it's got everything you could really want as far as the combat, the missions, a campaign setup that allows you to set up for a long-running campaign using a specific corporate CEO that is kind of your avatar in the game. This is also a game that has really got the creative juices of the Starship Combat community kind of flowing. And you can find lots of minis that were inspired by the game. You can find cards and markers and templates, even dashboards. A lot of this stuff is being sold off of places like Etsy. And because it's relatively straightforward and it's pretty clearly written, you have a lot of flexibility to do some homebrew pretty easily with this, whether it's new missions or maybe some new ship classes. So for all of that, it's really kind of a fun sandbox that you just sort of like to play in. And I've played several games of this now, and it's now, I think, my most played Starship Combat game of the last year or so, maybe tied with Star Wars Armada. I'd have to sit down and actually do the counting. It's pretty close one way or the other. So definitely great. You can get this direct from Osprey, or also online retailers like Amazon. Pretty easy to get your hands on it. You can either get it as a digital book or a PDF. So yeah, Billion Suns. Definitely something I'm hoping to play again soon, and something I definitely recommend. All right, so next up, another Osprey war game. This one is Castles in the Sky. It's another miniatures agnostic airship combat game, this time by Eric Farrington, friend of the show, member of the forums, goes by Easy E. So shout out to Eric. And what's cool about this one is that Eric has been adding some additional content for the game for free on his blog. I'll put a link in the descriptions below, but it's the Blood and Spectacles blog. And these include additional ships profiles, additional markers, some additional mechanics. So he's really sort of continuing to develop this game and expand it. And that's always great because it gives you lots of opportunities to try new things. So why Castles in the Sky? So full disclosure, I have not gotten a chance to play this one yet. I have the book, of course, and I've read through it, and I have... gotta say, I'm really excited about trying it. It is a game that incorporates things like altitude and speed. Your airships can actually stall, which is fun. And that is not something you always see in airship combat games. It's almost more, fighter air-to-air combat in that regard. So really, really interesting ideas. It has some concepts that were borrowed from Battlefleet Gothic, which is my favorite rule system. So that makes this game automatically of interest to me. And it's a great way to reuse some of those minis that you've got laying around. I still have the old Leviathans box set from Catalyst Game Labs, plenty of airships from my Dystopian Wars collection, and so on. So there is plenty of miniatures out there you can use for this game. And this is before you go and look at some of the beautiful offerings from places like Brigade Models. Just like with the Billion Suns book, you can get this direct from Osprey or from other online retailers of your choice. You can also get it either physically or digitally, depending on your preference. Me personally, I still tend to like to have a physical rule book in my hands when I'm playing a game. But if you have a preference for a digital rule book, then you can by all means get the PDF version of it. Okay, now the third and final game I'm going to talk about here is called Ironclads. Fleet Battles in the Victorian Ether. So this is a print and play game coming from Triple Ace Games. It is the result of a successful Kickstarter campaign last year. And this is a game of steampunk space naval combat. And no, you did not hear me wrong. This is a universe where the British landed on the moon in 1830 using coal-fired, steam-powered rocket ships. It's just a lot of goofy fun. The models for this game are fun. The whole idea is kind of ludicrous, so it just sort of makes for an interesting setting. It's available both digitally, i.e. as far as like STLs and PDFs, or as an actual physical box product from the Triple Ace Games website. So why Ironclads? Well, one of the things that drew me to this game first was the movement system that they've implemented for the game, which relies on a series of octagonal templates that you lay out on the table and then move your ships along. Really, really fun, really, really intuitive. I've messed around with it a little bit on the tabletop. It's really actually kind of enjoyable. I just like the way that movement works. I find the model designs fun. You can see the examples of the British renders here on the screen. Obviously, they're not super detailed models, but they really work for what we're dealing with here as far as the setting and the genre. And they definitely have a nice distinctive character and flavor to them. I'm a big fan of the designs. This is a cost-effective game to get into because it's print and play. If you don't want to have physical items shipped halfway around the world to you, then you can just buy the STLs and you can buy the PDFs and you can 3D print the ships and regular print the rules, and you're off to the races. This was a game that I got. This is like the first Kickstarter I backed that was a purely digital delivery. In other words, there was no physical artifacts associated with the campaign. Everything that you got out of the Kickstarter campaign was a STL or a PDF. And this was a little bit of an experiment for me in that regard because, like I said, it's the first Kickstarter I've gotten where you didn't get an actual physical thing in your hands just from the campaign. At the time I backed this, I didn't have a 3D printer. However, I was seriously considering getting one, and since then I actually have purchased a 3D printer, and so now I'm busily working on printing out my ships and tokens and everything else I need for the game. So the game has that attraction for me, just as sort of like a project to prove out the idea of a digital game that you print and 3D print all yourself. It's also another source of models for castles in the sky, because although these are designed to be space battleships, it's really not too much of a stretch to also look at them and consider them to be flying through the atmosphere as opposed to flying through space. There's nothing super spacey about the designs, I guess you could say. It looks like they'd be right at home as airships as well as spaceships. So that was another angle that was of interest to me. I will probably be covering this game in more detail, both on the website and on the blog and on the YouTube channel and on the podcast in the future, especially as I get enough stuff printed out that I can actually get some games in and maybe even do a full-fledged review. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, Ironclads is definitely sort of one of the things that I'm most interested in trying to get to the table right now. And you'll definitely be hearing me talk about how I actually like the game once I get a chance to play it, right? Okay, so there we go. That was 3 games. We talked about A Billion Suns. We talked about Castles in the Sky. And we talked about Ironclads. So let's go ahead and move on and do a little channel update here before we close out this video. So lots of topics. There's lots of things that I would like to cover with a video. I've mentioned in a couple of my other videos things along the lines of, oh yes, that would be an entire topic of its own. Unfortunately, my time is very constrained, and between a full-time job and little kids and actually painting and playing with my models, there's just not a lot of time left over for videos like this, which is why I'm generally limited to about 1 a month. I would like to try and keep that monthly schedule going. I would love to be able to get to the point where I'm doing 2 or 3 videos a month, or even up to a weekly schedule, but I don't think that's really in the cards for the near future. So if there are particular topics or things you would like me to cover with a YouTube video specifically, then please comment below or send me a message or hit me up on the Man Battle Station's forums and let me know what you would like to see as a YouTube video. That will help me sort of laser guide my limited video making time onto things that will be of most interest to you, my audience. I always am happy to take that feedback and work it into my topic and recording schedule. And then I'll put a quick plug here at the end for the Man Battle Station's Substack. This is a new venture I've started up. I'm basically going to be mirroring what I put on the Substack on the Man Battle Station's blog, so there's not going to be any sort of exclusive Substack content. And for those of you in the know, you realize that Substack can be a source of revenue for creators because they allow for paid subscriptions. However, I do intend to keep my Substack free, at least for the near to midterm, and therefore you won't have to worry about missing out on any content just because you didn't actually subscribe. And there's a good reason for that. Part of it is I don't think that the stuff I'm going to be putting on the Substack is really worth anyone's money, if I'm being completely honest. But also, I don't want to feel pressured to keep up with a posting schedule on the Substack because of people paying me money for a subscription. In other words, if people subscribe, then I think it's only natural and I think it's only fair that I actually provide something for what they're paying me for. And to be honest with you, I can't guarantee I'll always have that time for the reasons I mentioned earlier. So because of that, all of that, the Man Battle Station Substack will be free, which means there's absolutely zero reason not to go over to Substack and throw in a subscription. And oh, hey, you'll also find in the little newsletters I do for the website through the Substack an exclusive promo code for you to use over at the Man Battle Station's Etsy shop. So at least you have that to look forward to. And that will do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any feedback, comments, or suggestions, again, please leave a comment below, and please let me know what you thought, and I will be happy to take that on board. And until next time, this is Ruckdog saying good luck and good hunting.